Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and today I'm going to tell you how I felt about Turtle Power, the definitive history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is a documentary that came out just this year. I've been watching a crazy amount of documentaries lately as I've been working on my own. If you don't know about it, I am working on a documentary called Midwest in Panels, which is going to come out here in the next month or so. It's a documentary about comic shops across the Midwest, and as I'm working on that, I'm looking for inspiration and pointers about editing a documentary, because this is a thing that I have never done before. So I've been watching a lot of different things, and as I was flipping through Amazon Rentals, I found this and remembered, oh yeah, I had heard that there was a Ninja Turtles documentary, didn't realize that it was this new, and thought it might be worth going ahead and doing a video on. So in case you haven't seen it yet and you might want to know if it's worth the time and money. So I'll tell you what I thought of it, and I'm flying solo today. I watched this on my own, but I'm going to do it in the feeling format anyway. And so starting right out, this is again a documentary that purports to be the definitive history of Ninja Turtles. That's a really bold statement, and I think in some ways it's warranted, and in some ways it's kind of an odd title, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But forgetting the title and what you would expect from it, it's a solid documentary. It's a very well-made movie. It's very polished. It's very organized, and it's talking about all of the stuff that I would be most interested in with Ninja Turtles. A lot of detailed history about the beginnings of the comic and the relationship between Eastman and Laird. A lot of stuff about the cartoon show and the action figures and the relationship that those had. It's a really competently told story about the beginnings of Ninja Turtles, and there's a ton of stuff in this about the 1990 movie that I never knew about. So anyway, this movie made me feel like I was seeing the history and behind the scenes of my own childhood. And once again, that's both my favorite part about it and the strangest thing given the title. It was something called The Definitive History of Ninja Turtles. You would expect that it would start from the beginning and go all the way up. And I feel like this is about an hour 40 minutes, which seems to be kind of the standard runtime lately for documentaries. It seems like most of the recent documentaries I've seen have been about that runtime. It's really interesting. And I think that's enough time, potentially, to do Ninja Turtles all the way from beginning going up if all you want to do is a history. If you don't want to get too much into personal histories and you don't want to analyze the importance of Ninja Turtles in pop culture, maybe not importance, but just relevance and popularity. But I mean, I don't know, the popularity of it is there and inherent. I'm just saying, if you don't want to analyze, the fandom, why it draws people so much and that kind of stuff, and you kind of want to just do a more unbiased, this is what happened, I think you could do that in an hour 40 minutes. I don't think that's exactly what we have here. I think this is and I don't even know about the word definitive, because I do feel like this is in some ways sort of incomplete. There's a lot of, I can tell sometimes watching documentaries where I'm like, you guys had so much good stuff, you couldn't figure out how to. It was impossible to get it all in your hour 40 runtime. I would love to see. I haven't looked into this. I want to see if there's any special features and stuff on any extended interviews and stuff on the DVD, because I can tell there's a lot more here and in some of these interviews, and they had to kind of clip it down a little bit. Frankly, I would have been fine with 2 hours of this. This was an incredibly interesting documentary, and I think it's a little too short. Actually, I would have enjoyed to stay in that place longer and continue to learn. But anyway, so the word definitive is I think a little bit rough here. It's kind of like there's a book that was put out recently, and I've only read part of it, called Marvel: The Untold Story. And there's all of this stuff in that book about what was really going on at Marvel, and how people really felt about each other, and all the stuff that you don't get in interviews in these kinds of things. Obviously, you have to take sometimes interviews with celebrities and creators and stuff with a little bit of a grain of salt, because they're not always going to tell you everything, and and a lot of the time it's going to be somewhat one-sided. And I'm not saying that anybody in this is necessarily lying, or that I don't believe them or anything like that. I'm just saying that there are sections where I'm like, there's more to that story, and I wish that a movie called The Definitive History could have given it to me. So I think the title is too bold for what was made. Eastman and Laird each are really respectful of each other, and I appreciated that, because I've always heard about how they became more and more distanced as time went on, and how they don't really get along anymore. And I'm glad that they went into that a little bit by the end, and it's a thing that I kept waiting for. I was like, okay, we're interviewing them separately, of course, and they're speaking with a lot of respect for each other and admiration, but I know that eventually that relationship kind of broke apart, and that from my understanding, the business side of it kind of became too much and affected the creative side of it, and it just broke them apart. They were too different. But what I do like is that the documentary deals with how their differences are what made the thing work in the first place. That you took these very, very you took these guys that were very unlike each other, and you put them together, and they each had an entirely different set of strengths and weaknesses and strengths that complemented each other, and then you got this thing that you could not have gotten with just one of them, or with like two Eastmans or two Lairds, and I liked all of that, and they both talked about that and agreed on that. But I don't get a sense enough of what exactly it was that separated them. But I felt like both of them were really reserved about talking about the other, and that that's not a criticism about the documentary. That's probably just the way they were going to be interviewed, and you weren't going to get that information. You weren't going to be able to coerce that kind of stuff out of them. And maybe the documentary didn't want to be too much about that kind of thing, and so that's okay, I suppose. But enough attention was drawn to it that I just wanted to know more. So that's maybe more telling about the gentleman being interviewed than it is about the way the film was made. Anyway, I think this is a really good business documentary. I really like the emphasis on how such a underground, like, grassroots thing became this incredibly powerful and money-making juggernaut. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I knew already, but I learned a lot more, and I learned where I would know a thing on the surface, but then I would get kind of the whole, more of the whole story, more of like the details behind it. And so, like, I knew that the cartoon show, for instance, was made in order to sell the action figures. What I didn't know was just how many of the action figures, even after the original 5-part miniseries and the series started going, were made, and then characters were come up with, and then people had to come up with the characters, to go with the action figures. I didn't realize that Bebop and Rocksteady were action figures first. I didn't know that. I didn't know that about Rat King. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. I love how comprehensive all the stuff about the action figures is, and how like you get to see a whole bunch of like early drawings of figures, and you get to see a lot of diagrams of like making these like really incredibly intricate and complex figures. And there's like Playmates had this philosophy of let's come up with the biggest and craziest and most intricate thing we can, and then draw back instead of starting more reserved, because because some of the best ideas will come out of that. And as I was looking at a lot of those old toys, and some of them I still have in detail in the documentary, I was like, wow, toys don't come with that many pieces anymore. Or at least stuff that's, because like the new Ninja Turtle line seems to be very much based in in what the old line was, and trying to use all of the same techniques and stuff in making so many of them, and in having a lot of moving parts and stuff like that. But I don't see as much of that in action figures these days. So while the figures themselves weren't real posable and weren't real articulate and had a lot of gimmicks and stuff, it was the gimmicks that made them cool. It was like you had all these different accessories and things, and you felt like you got so much detail and stuff to use your imagination to come up with things for not a whole lot of money. And I don't know, it was just like I said, it felt like I was seeing the behind the scenes of my childhood, because it brought back all these memories, and it brought back all of these things I hadn't really thought of in a long time, of like the joy of that stuff and like why I liked it so much. And I just I don't know, I know I get nostalgic sometimes, but I had kind of forgotten about a lot of that, and it was really fun to re-experience it. This is the best thing I've seen on the movie. I've seen a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff here and there. This is much more comprehensive than anything I'd seen before. There was a part of me that kept going, I wish you guys had made a movie about the toys, and then a movie about the cartoon show, and then a movie about the movie, because there's like a really good 20-minute featurette inside this that should have been the featurette for like the cartoon show and the movie. And there's a lot of actors and voice actors that are interviewed. It was really cool to see everybody from the original cartoon show. Townsend Coleman is interviewed. The guys that did Shredder and Krang are interviewed. And it was a lot of fun to watch all those guys. And what continues to be kind of strange about, and then with the movie, like there's talk about Jim Henson and about how he almost didn't do the project because he was afraid it was too violent, and he didn't like how that might impact the image of his company. I hadn't heard that before. It didn't even occur to me. That makes a lot of sense. And anyway, just a lot of, it made me think about a lot of things about this franchise that I hadn't really considered before, that I hadn't thought about in a long time, and just the amount of work that went into this, the amount of not just the people interviewed, but all of the stuff that they found to kind of enhance learning about the history of all the stuff, the diagrams and the and all the archive footage and stuff. It was really cool to see a bunch of things that I've just never seen before in behind the scenes things with Ninja Turtles. But once again, the big criticism I have to give it is that it is not definitive. It's the definitive history of the origin of Ninja Turtles, maybe. And like I said, that's fine. I like everything that's here, and I learned a lot. But I feel like folks that are younger than me might find themselves going, well, I was hoping to learn maybe a little bit more about the '03 series or the new cartoon or the other movies. This was made in 2014, and there are pictures at the beginning and in like a timeline of the new movie from 2014, but like nothing about it at all, and like how that happened. Some of the focus in this is on how the Turtle property somehow continues to endure, even though when Playmates was first putting the toys together. And remember that Playmates made the toys, and then they made a cartoon show in order to sell the toys, and so they were like, there's a lot of stuff about how action figures were considered to have like a 3-year lifespan, and then kids would move on to something else. And if you made it for 3 years, then you were really, really successful. And Turtles lasted far, far beyond that. Well, the problem with saying that and then not doing anything about modern about more. I don't want to say modern. This is all modern, but like to not talk about anything about like current seems a little weird, because there was this short period of time where turtles seemed to kind of not be the big thing anymore. Like, now it's back. There's one little part that's in the middle of a larger section where there's a little bit of discussion about how kids now seem to react to Ninja Turtles exactly the way we did. And I like that was there, but I wish they'd gone further with it. There's a long clip over in an interview talking about that, with a kid playing with new Ninja Turtles toys from the current series, and that was a little moving for me, because my kid has exactly the same thing. So like, we're into another generation now, and Jason responds to Ninja Turtles exactly the way I did, and the idea of this is somehow universal, and it's hard to get a real good peg as to why, I think is absolutely fascinating. But I would have liked to have seen, in a thing called Definitive History, how it came back. And I think it's kind of unfortunate that that's not there. But anyway, overall, I am really feeling it hard on this one. I think this is an absolutely marvelous documentary. And like I said, really well made. There's a really cool opening title sequence with with some just fantastic cinematography of New York City, and showing like sewers and stuff. And it kind of harkens back to the 1990 movie. It's like I said, it's really pretty. It's really well made, and there's some really good interviews, and a lot of really good information that I just didn't know, and it was fun to learn so much about the business side of it. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Sure, hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments if you've seen this, what you thought of it. And in the meantime, I will be back again sometime in the near future with more reviews of new movies. I am Captain Logan, and I'll see you again very soon.